Yesterday, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Like I said then, this is obviously a specific tragedy for his family. It goes without saying for anyone who is familiar with this channel, but murdering people is evil, actually. On a national scale, this is also something really bad for the entire country. We are in a very precarious place in the United States. Even if you're both devoid of all morality and on the far left, even if you detest Charlie Kirk, you should not want this sort of thing to happen in America. I don't think we're on the verge of a civil war or anything like that, but there is clearly a significant risk of escalating violence because lots of people are calling for it. Compare this to the 1960s or the years of lead in Italy. I'll probably make a larger video about what this means for the country. I'm waiting to do so because despite what people on Twitter and in the White House are pretending, at the time of this video we do not know the motivations behind the killing. Judging from the appearance of the FBI's latest suspect, there is certainly a non-zero chance the guy is on the far right. But who the hell knows, because the FBI has done a garbage job on this so far. Obviously, people on the left hate Charlie Kirk. It might have been someone on the left, but so too do people on the far right, like Ubersoy, who called Charlie Kirk an utter shill for Israel that would go against all evidence to back Israel against its enemies. Or PaxTube, who said Charlie Kirk was an agent of Israel who actively worked to harvest white youth for the anti-white Republican Party, and a poster child of conservatives who lie to their audience in service of ... And the reason I'm reading these quotes is because these people don't even like Charlie Kirk. If one of their own killed Charlie Kirk, I don't think they would care that much. PaxTube might even support it. They're cynically using his assassination for a political agenda against their political enemies, and of course for personal self-aggrandizement. Ubersoy, by the way, isn't even American. He's a European immigrant to Canada, but, makes all his money talking about American politics. Let's talk about Reddit for a second. After the Boston Marathon bombing in 2013, Reddit took it upon itself to find the perpetrators. There was even a whole subreddit for it. They decided, based off garbage evidence, that this random guy was responsible, directing harassment at him and his family. Turns out the guy died before the bombing. He wasn't connected to it at all. So thanks to the greatest sleuths on the internet, the family members of a dead guy were harassed for an attack they had nothing to do with. It's happening again now. Let's talk about Ubersoy. And before people say I should reach out to him personally about any complaints, I already have. You'll see his response. Soon after the shooting, some old guy was arrested in Utah. Ubersoy, getting information from who knows where, said this random guy on Twitter, a registered Democrat in the state of Utah, was the shooter. That was at 3:48 p.m. Eastern Time. 10 minutes later, I responded to Ubersoy and said, bad idea to do this before anything is confirmed, this might be an innocent person, and you're going to direct threats and possible even additional violence his way. Delete the tweet. Instead, Ubersoy tweeted again that he thought this random guy on Twitter was the assassin. Now, he since deleted that second tweet, but the first tweet is up and had about 500,000 views yesterday at the time. Sure enough, if you go to the old guy's Twitter account who Ubersoy believed was the assassin, he was receiving plenty of harassment. Now, Ubersoy wasn't the only guy to do this, of course, but that doesn't mean he isn't at least partially responsible for the hatred and the vitriol and probably the death threats and doxing attempt that went after this random old guy. Now, if this guy on Twitter was actually responsible for the assassination, that's one thing. But this random guy was not the shooter. In fact, he wasn't even the guy the police arrested, who wasn't the shooter either. Great job, Ubersoy. Very smart move. At 6:08 p.m., Ubersoy said, it's not him, by the way. So far, that has been seen by 9,000 people, compared to the 500,000 people who saw the initial tweet. Even if you care about finding the guy who killed Charlie Kirk, which I care about as a matter of justice, this isn't justice. At 5:52 p.m., so slightly before this, Ubersoy narrowed onto another subject. This tweet was seen by at least 1 million people. The person doesn't even match any images of anyone at the scene. They just tweeted a death threat, which is bad. Obviously a bad thing to do. But every controversial figure gets lots of those. Any intelligent person would know that isn't sufficient evidence to determine with certainty that the specific person who issued the death threat was responsible for the actual death. Yet Ubersoy, a modern-day Sherlock Holmes, ran with it. 1 million people saw this tweet blaming someone not responsible for a murder. At 1 p.m. the next day, so today, Ubersoy took another swing and announced a third person was the current main suspect because they made a song about Charlie Kirk dying before the actual death. I think it was weeks before. Now we have images of a suspect, and they look nothing like the person who made the song. Obviously a bad song, an evil song, a stupid song, but they didn't murder Charlie Kirk. Obviously they didn't, but Ubersoy, at this point, probably doesn't care about accurate information. So at 2 p.m. today, I messaged Ubersoy on a Discord we're both in and told him he was going to get someone killed. Ubersoy responded by saying, "I have already clarified that I don't think they are the murderer in the following tweet. Do leftist damage control elsewhere." First of all, I don't know what damage control I'm doing. The guy didn't kill him. You're causing damage to someone who did no damage. I responded to Ubersoy and said, 9,000 people saw it versus 500,000 who saw the original one. Now you're tweeting your theories again today when it's obviously a different person from the images. Stop tweeting your theories, you're gonna get someone else hurt. Ubersoy said, "That's clearly what's important right now, the safety of people who threatened to murder him before he was murdered, and I'm not talking about this case, but the other two suspects I tweeted about." Again, Ubersoy doesn't like Charlie Kirk. He's not actually doing anything good. He's not solving a murder. He's directing a hate mob at people who have nothing to do with this thing. The far-right people don't even like Charlie Kirk. They think he's controlled by Israel. They're using this to target people they don't like. Democrats and trans people. Now, should you make death threats and songs about Charlie Kirk dying? Obviously not, which I said at the beginning of the video. If you're familiar with his channel, which I've criticized far-left people on, you know I don't support that sort of thing. But Ubersoy is using a murder to excuse what he wanted to do anyways, which is harass, intimidate, and cause harm to people he hates in a country he has nothing to do with, and honestly, should shut the fuck up about. Also, shout out to Mr. Asian Pie, the world's #1 Asian groiper, who responded to me by saying, "Emotional blackmail ain't gonna work anymore." When I told him to stop LARPing, he said, "What LARP am I doing? No is going to cry if the wrong guy kills zerself." Mr. Asian Pie, I hate to tell you this, but they're not gonna make you an honorary Aryan. These people don't actually care about anyone dying. In fact, they want more people to die to advance their political agenda. That's why they're directing their hate mob at them. That's why Mr. Asian Pie said this. That's the problem. Now, you could talk for hours about Charlie Kirk's personal moral value, the value of his political beliefs, and so on. Certainly, these people have harsh criticisms for Charlie Kirk. But the moral lesson the United States should take from this, first of all, it shouldn't listen to people from Canada, but the lesson we should take from this is that there should be absolutely zero political violence in this country. The person who killed Charlie Kirk should be caught, should be punished with the full extent of the law. I think we need to have a serious conversation in this country about political violence and the escalation of rhetoric because it doesn't serve anyone. But this sort of thing is part of the problem.